Okay, so get this, we're diving deep today into this idea of left brain artists.
Left brain artists.
Yeah, it's
I like it.
it's a pretty wild concept. It comes from this thinker named Pranaay,
Okay.
and he's been developing these ideas for over 20 years. So it's not just like some, fly by night kind of thing.
Right, yeah, so we're not talking about someone who just came up with this last week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So to give you a quick rundown, left brain artists are basically these people who bridge the gap between like artistic vision and strategic thinking.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so they can not only dream it up, but they can also figure out how to make it happen.
So it's not just the creative spark, it's also the execution, the planning, the bringing it to life.
Right on. And when you think about it, some of the most impactful figures in history fit this description.
Okay, give me some examples. I'm curious.
Well, think about Da Vinci.
Oh, yeah, he was a genius.
Not only an incredible artist, but an inventor, an engineer, a true visionary.
Right, and he had those detailed notebooks full of sketches and plans. It's like he could see the future.
Totally. Or how about Steve Jobs?
Ah, the master of design and marketing.
Yeah, he had this incredible sense of aesthetics, but he also understood how to build a brand and a whole ecosystem around his products.
He was definitely a game changer.
And let's not forget Walt Disney.
The ultimate storyteller.
He created entire worlds, not just animated films, but theme parks, merchandise, a whole cultural phenomena.
And it all started with his imagination, but it took a lot of left-brain thinking to build it all.
Absolutely. So Pranaay's argument is that we need more of these left-brain artists, especially in developing regions like India and Africa.
That's interesting. Why those regions specifically?
Well, he sees it as a way to not only empower those communities, but also to tap into a huge pool of untapped creative potential.
Makes sense. There's so much talent out there that's often overlooked or doesn't have the resources to thrive.
Exactly. And it ties into this global imbalance that UNESCO has been highlighting.
UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization.
Yeah, they've reported that a whopping 95% of cultural exports come from the global north.
Wow, that's a huge disparity.
Yeah, so it basically means that the creative voices and ideas from the global south are being drowned out.
That's a problem not just for those regions, but for the world as a whole. We're missing out on so much potential.
Right. And that's where Pranaay's vision comes in. He's not just talking about supporting individual artists. He's talking about building entire ecosystems for creative empowerment.
Okay, now we're talking, that's a much bigger and bolder vision.
It is. He even talks about creating physical hubs, almost like creative townships, where these left-brain artists can live, work, and collaborate.
Wow, that sounds ambitious.
Yeah. But think about the possibilities. A space dedicated to fostering creativity, innovation, and collaboration.
It would be like a breeding ground for new ideas and solutions.
Exactly. But building these ecosystems and hubs raises a lot of questions.
Yeah, like what kind of resources and support systems would these artists need to truly thrive?
Right. And how can we ensure that these initiatives are sustainable and benefit the communities they're intended to serve?
Those are crucial questions. And it's interesting because Pranaay's vision seems to align with some of the things we saw when we compared the creative scenes in the UAE and India back in episodes 1 and 2 of his YouTube series.
Oh, yeah. Those were some great deep dives. What stood out to you from those episodes?
Well, the contrast between the two approaches was pretty striking.
In what way?
Well, the UAE, with initiatives like their Golden Visa program, is actively recruiting global talent.
Yeah, they're really rolling out the red carpet for creatives.
They're offering long-term visas, a dynamic environment for innovation.
And they even have that super detailed cultural visa request form that we talked about.
Oh yeah, it shows how serious they are about attracting artists and creators.
They're basically positioning themselves as a global hub for creativity.
And it seems to be working. They've got a lot of momentum.
Yeah, but on the other hand, India, even with a wealth of talent, seems to be struggling to provide the same level of focused support.
Right. I remember we talked about how the Indian budget for 2025-2026, while promoting things like Make in India, didn't really address the broader needs of the creative sector.
Yeah, it felt like a missed opportunity.
Like they're recognizing the importance of manufacturing, but not necessarily the creative engine that drives innovation.
Exactly. So back to Pranaay's vision. He's proposing a multi-pronged approach to empowering these left-brain artists.
Okay, I'm all ears, lay it on me.
Well, first and foremost, he emphasizes the importance of community.
Community. Okay, so what does that look like in practice?
Well, he envisions this global online platform where artists can connect with each other, find mentors, access funding.
So it's like a central hub for a decentralized network of creatives.
Exactly. Think of it as a digital co-op for the creative minds of the world.
I like it. It fosters collaboration and resource sharing without taking away individual agency.
Right on. And it's not just about connection, it's also about providing tailored resources.
Okay, so what kind of resources are we talking about here?
He talks about funding mentorship, business development support, all geared towards creative entrepreneurs.
So he's not just saying go be creative, he's giving them the tools to build sustainable careers.
Exactly. He wants to move away from that whole starving artist stereotype.
It's about empowering them to turn their passion into a viable path.
And it's not just about individual success. It's about how these left-brain artists can drive innovation and solve real-world problems.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting.
Right.
How does he see that happening?
Well, he talks about the potential for these artists to tackle challenges like climate change, social inequality, technological disruption.
So he's not just talking about making pretty things, he's talking about using creativity to make a real difference in the world.
Absolutely. And he even mentions this idea of a physical hub, a dedicated space where these artists can come together and collaborate.
Like a real-world manifestation of his vision.
Exactly. But of course, there are challenges and questions that come with building such a hub.
Yeah, like, is it even feasible? Where would it be located? What would it look like?
Those are all great questions, and we'll definitely dive deeper into those in the next part of our deep dive.
Looking forward to it. This is fascinating stuff.
It is, and it really makes you think about the power of creativity and the potential it has to shape our future.
Absolutely. And the role that we can all play in fostering that creativity.
Right. It's not just about artists. It's about all of us embracing our own left brain potential.
And that's a conversation I'm excited to continue. So stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into the world of left brain artists. So we left off talking about Pranaay's vision for like these physical hubs, these creative townships.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild idea, right? Like in today's world where everything's going digital, why even bother with physical spaces?
That's a good question, and honestly, I wrestled with that a bit myself.
Yeah.
But I think when you really dig into it, there's something powerful about in-person interaction and collaboration.
Oh, for sure. There's just a different energy when you're in the same room with people bouncing ideas off each other.
Exactly. You can't really replicate that kind of synergy online, no matter how many Zoom calls you have.
Yeah, I've been in way too many of those lately, and it's just not the same.
And I think Pranaay recognizes that these left-brain artists in particular, they thrive on that kind of dynamic exchange.
Yeah, they're not just like lone wolves in a studio. They're collaborators,
Huh.
innovators.
Right. They need that back and forth, that spark that comes from working together in person.
So these physical hubs could almost act as like catalysts for innovation, speeding up the process of turning ideas into reality.
Exactly. It's like creating a fertile ground where creativity can flourish.
And it's not a totally new concept either.
Hmm?
Think about those historical examples like the Bauhaus movement or the Renaissance workshops.
Oh, yeah, those were hotbeds of creativity and innovation.
Artists, architects, thinkers, all coming together, inspiring each other, pushing the boundaries of their fields.
It's like that saying, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, but the question is, how do you adapt those historical models to the modern world?
Right. How do you create a space that's both technologically advanced and caters to the specific needs of these left-brain artists?
That's a challenge for sure. But Pranaay doesn't just stop at physical hubs. He also talks about connecting these artists globally.
Right. He sees that as crucial for breaking down those geographical barriers, fostering a sense of shared purpose.
And that goes back to the UNESCO report we talked about earlier.
The one that highlighted the dominance of the global north in cultural exports.
Yeah, he wants to see a world where talent is recognized and supported regardless of location.
A more equitable and inclusive creative landscape?
Exactly. Where creativity can flourish anywhere in the world.
That's a beautiful vision. So how do we actually make this happen?
Well, that brings us to the big question. How do we empower these left-brain artists?
Right. What are the concrete steps we need to take to turn Pranaay's vision into a reality?
It's a big challenge, but I think it starts with acknowledging the systemic failures that are holding these artists back.
Okay, like what specifically?
Well, Pranaay talks about things like outdated creative platforms, a lack of tailored funding, a general misunderstanding of the value that these artists bring to the table.
He's basically saying we need to revamp the entire system.
Yeah, we need to rewire how we perceive and support creativity.
Move beyond that outdated, starving artist stereotype.
And recognize these individuals as potential innovators, entrepreneurs, problem solvers.
Because that's what they are. They're not just dreamers, they're doers.
And that requires a shift, not just in mindset, but also in infrastructure.
Right. We need to build the platforms, the resources, the support systems that empower these artists to succeed,
Give them the tools to not just survive, but to thrive.
both financially and creatively.
And I love how Pranaay frames this as a call to action,
Yeah.
not just for governments and institutions, but for individuals as well.
Oh, yeah. He's really putting it out there. He's saying, hey, this is on all of us.
He wants us to recognize our own left brain potential,
To embrace our inner innovators.
to challenge those traditional boundaries that separate art from science, technology, and business.
Because those boundaries are artificial, they don't really exist in the real world.
Exactly. And he's not just talking the talk, he's walking the walk.
Okay, how so?
Well, he's developing this whole book series. He's creating online platforms. He's mentoring the next generation of left brain artists.
So he's really putting his ideas into action.
Absolutely. And he even mentioned that he has like hundreds of unpatented concepts that he's choosing to share freely.
Wow, that's incredible.
Instead of hoarding them for personal gain, he's putting them out there for the world to benefit from.
It's a testament to his belief in the power of collaborative innovation.
Yeah, he's really walking the walk. He's putting his money where his mouth is.
I love that. So what can our listeners do to contribute to this left brain renaissance?
That's the big question, right? It's a global movement, so it needs global participation.
Right. Every little bit counts.
So I think the first step is simply becoming aware of this concept.
Yeah. Open your mind to the possibilities of left brain thinking.
Start seeing the world through this new lens.
And pay attention to the creative problem solving that's happening all around you.
It's not just in art studios, it's in everyday life.
It's in the way we approach our work, the way we interact with each other, the way we solve problems.
And don't be afraid to challenge those traditional boundaries.
Embrace your inner innovator.
Think outside the box.
And if you're feeling inspired, take action.
Support artists and creatives in your community.
Advocate for policies that foster creativity and innovation.
And most importantly, nurture your own left brain potential.
Yeah, don't underestimate the power of your own ideas.
Your ability to make a difference.
Because you have that ability. We all do.
Pranaay's message is ultimately one of hope and empowerment.
Yeah, he's not just pointing out the problems, he's offering a solution.
He believes that we have the collective capacity to create a better future.
A future where creativity is not just valued, but harnessed as a force for positive change.
And he's inviting all of us to join him on this journey.
So to our listeners, we ask, what will your contribution be to this left brain renaissance?
That's a great question to ponder. Yeah, it's really inspiring to see someone actually putting their ideas into action like that. But it's not just about Pranaay's individual efforts. It's really like a call to action for all of us.
Right. He's saying like, hey, look in the mirror. What's your part in this whole left brain renaissance thing? Are we going to just sit around and wait for somebody else to do it? Or are we going to get up and actually be part of making this happen?
And he doesn't think it's just artists, right? Like he thinks this left brain thinking can apply to like every field, any job.
Totally. He sees it as like a whole new way of thinking about problems and innovation and even just what people are capable of. He says anybody, no matter what you do or where you come from, you can tap into this left brain stuff and make a difference.
So it's like we all have this hidden creative potential just waiting to be unlocked.
Yeah, we just need the right tools, the right mindset, and the right environment to help it grow.
He even says that like the whole definition of an artist needs to change. Like anybody who's out there solving problems creatively is an artist in his book.
So it's not about everybody picking up a paintbrush or learning an instrument.
It's about using that mix of imagination and strategic thinking in your own life, whatever you're into, whatever you're good at.
Like, he gives this example of someone who's really good at organizing and planning, which you might not think of as creative, but it's super important for making any vision a reality.
So basically, creativity can show up in all kinds of ways, not just the artsy stuff.
It's about seeing the creative potential in everyday life, in your work, in how you interact with the world.
He even says that this whole left brain thinking thing could be the key to the next step in human evolution.
Whoa, that's a big claim.
I know, right? But when you think about all this stuff we're dealing with, like climate change and inequality and all these crazy technologies, it does make you wonder if we need a whole new way of thinking to handle it all.
Yeah, for sure. And Pranaay thinks that these left-brain artists, with their ability to bridge that gap between imagination and action, they could be the ones to lead the way.
So they can not only dream up solutions, but actually figure out how to make them happen.
Okay, so where do we go from here? What can our listeners actually do to be a part of this left-brain renaissance?
Well, I think the first thing is just to be aware of it, to start seeing the world through this new lens.
Yeah. Notice all the creative problem solving that's already going on around you.
In the arts, in everyday life, everywhere.
Pay attention to those aha moments when you have a sudden insight. Don't just let them slip away.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to think outside the box to challenge the way things have always been done.
And if you're really feeling fired up, take it a step further.
Support artists and creatives in your community.
Push for policies that encourage creativity and innovation.
And most importantly, nurture your own left brain potential.
Don't underestimate yourself. Your ideas matter. You can make a difference.
It's a message of hope and empowerment.
It is. He's not just doom and gloom. He really believes we can create a better future.
A future where creativity is seen as a powerful force for good.
So to all our listeners, we ask you, what will you bring to this left brain renaissance? What will your contribution be?
That's something to think about for sure. Well, this has been an awesome deep dive, and we hope you've enjoyed it.
If you want to learn more, definitely check out Pranaay's YouTube channel, @LeftBrainArtist.
And keep an eye out for his book series, The Left Brain Artist. It's going to be packed with even more insights and ideas.
So until next time, keep those creative sparks flying. And thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.